Hi, welcome to the Come Off Conqueror show. I'm your host, Bonnie, and today is day 4 of our self love challenge. If you missed days 1 through 3, the links are down below. Those days talked about what is self love and how do you turn off negative self talk to have positive self talk, and how to build more self confidence, and some other things to help you learn how to have self love, which is what our challenge is all about. Hopefully, by day 5, you'll get some tools and resources to help you learn to develop self love. Self love isn't selfish, right? It's more about being confident and giving yourself grace and learning yourself and learning not to compare to other people and stuff like that, right? It helps with depression and self esteem and those sort of things. And today, we're going to talk more about getting to know yourself and how it can help you have more self love. So let's jump in. All right, getting to know yourself. That seems kind of like a weird thing to say, right? Why would I pick that as day 4? Well, when I was thinking about day 4 and what we should do for today, it was actually going to be writing a list of things that are really positive about you. But as I was talking about this topic with a dear friend of mine, and I kind of gave her some of my ideas, she came up with the idea of having it really be about getting to know yourself. And the reason that she thought that was because you can't really love yourself until you know yourself. And that seems like kind of obvious. And it seems like you would know yourself, right? Like, you know your name, you know where you live, you probably know what foods you like, and things like that. Let me turn my phone on silent. And those sort of things. But I remember a few weeks ago, I'm in another support group for women, and a woman posted about her past abuse and how that led to her not really knowing who she is. When she got out of that marriage, she discovered she didn't know what movies she liked. She didn't know what flavor of ice cream she liked. She didn't know what kind of food she wanted to go eat out at the restaurant. She really had lost herself in this marriage, and she no longer knew who she was. And so she was posting and asking for help on how to overcome that. We're going to hear from her in a few minutes, more about her story and how she learned to overcome that. So stay tuned to the end. But she got me thinking that it's really true. When you've been abused or you've gone through trauma or things like that, sometimes and when you are depressed and you feel bad about yourself, it's easy to get lost in the negative, and it's easy to lose sight of who you are and where you're going and your strengths and things. We focus so heavily on our weaknesses and our failures and the bad things that happen to us. And while I'm going to explain in a minute here why recognizing those things is a good thing, dwelling on it, right, isn't. It can lead to depression and suicide and all sorts of things. So there is a quote that I found when I was researching this topic from mindbodygreen.com. And the quote, sorry, let me move my computer closer to me so I can read this. It says, over time, you will discover that loving yourself improves everything in your life. Your relationships, your health and well-being, your ability to manifest your dreams, and your self-esteem. Loving and connecting with yourself is the key to being able to love and connect with others and create loving relationships. Loving yourself is the key to creating a passionate, fulfilled, and joyful life. I really liked that quote because I think it's the essence of what we're trying to achieve with the self-love challenge. Learning how to have a fulfilled and joyful life. And one of the ways to do that is you can't manifest your dreams and have better self-esteem if you don't actually know who you are. So in previous videos, we talked about recognizing that you're a child of God, right? And recognizing that you have worth and that you have divinity within you and that you are special and that you have incredible worth and you are put on this planet for a reason. And we've kind of already talked about that. So now let's take that a step further and get to know yourself. So here's some steps on how we can do that. The first step, well, I don't know if these are really in order, okay, but I just came up with a few ways to get to know yourself and why it's important. The first one I wrote down is getting to know your emotions and getting to know your pain and your weaknesses and realize that we are a work in progress and we don't have to live in this state, in this depressed state or this negative state, but we can move away. But in the same token, we can't move away from the negativity and we can't get over these past traumas if we don't acknowledge them. If we keep pretending that these things didn't happen or that these things aren't real, all we're doing is stuffing and burying it. And I don't know if you've read the book, The Body Keeps the Score, or something similar. There's a lot of books like it. But it basically says that the more you stuff these negative emotions, the more disease you'll have in your body. It can create migraines, it can cause muscle tension, it can cause organ failure, it can cause all sorts of issues in your body. And I remember listening to a podcast from my friend Lori Lee's podcast, Love Your Story. She gave a great interview on acknowledging anger and how anger can be used for your good. I'll link to it in the show notes down below. And that podcast was one of the first times I'd ever heard someone else talk about how acknowledging your pain and acknowledging your hurt and sitting with it will allow you to give it a name and then you can release it. There is a concept, and I want to say it's the Hindu religion that is called Maya, right? This world is an illusion. And that these attachments, we take on attachments. And these attachments aren't real. The attachments are things like our role as a teacher, our role as a nurse, our role as a mother, our role as whatever, all these different labels that we give ourselves. I am a baker, I am a crafter, I am whatever it is, right? But these things aren't real, according to this philosophy. And the more attachments you have, the more weighed down you are. But when you start to release these attachments, they don't have a hold on you. And you can essentially, when you release them, you're no longer weighed down, but you can achieve enlightenment. And enlightenment is becoming at one with the universe and becoming free of pain and sorrow and free of these things that hold us back. And I'm totally oversimplifying it, so I apologize to anyone who is of this religion and who knows more than I do, because I probably butchered that, so I apologize. But this idea that sometimes these attachments can be negative, they're not always negative, right? Like being a mother can be wonderful, being a teacher can be wonderful, being a nurse can be wonderful. But what the concept is telling me, to me personally, is that these things are not who I really am innately. Innately, I am a daughter of God. And that means that I have worth. And that is my true identity. And these other things are temporary. They're not permanent. The only thing that is permanent is my soul and my being and my eternal progression. That is what is permanent. These other things come and go. And that's why they're called attachments, because they can attach and detach, right? And so getting to know, so this is kind of a long way around this idea of getting to know your pain and stuff, and being able to acknowledge it means that you can finally say, this is something that happened to me. This is not who I am. This failure, this mistake, this pain, this disease, this abuse, this cancer, whatever is, this is stuff that is happening right now, or it happened. It is not eternal. Does that make sense? Even something as serious as losing a limb or having a debilitating sickness, these things will not continue in the afterlife. You will be perfect when we get to heaven. We're not expected to be perfect right now. There is, I actually wasn't going to talk about this until later, but I'm going to bring it up now. One of my favorite talks of all time is by, sorry, when we look it up, is by Elder Holland in our church. And he's one of the apostles in our church. And it's titled, Be Ye Therefore Perfect Eventually. It's one of my favorite talks, not just because the title is awesome, but the whole talk is just incredible. But let me read this part to you. He said, first he reads the commandment in the Bible. Okay, now I've lost my place. Sorry, bear with me. Be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father in heaven is perfect. Then he goes on to talk about a talk that President Nelson says about perfection is still pending. But I love this part where he says, so I believe that Jesus did not intend that his sermon on this subject to be a verbal hammer for battering us about our shortcomings. No, I believe he intended it to be a tribute to who and what God the Eternal Father is, and what we can achieve with him in the eternity. Let me read that again. He intended it to be a tribute to who and what God the Eternal Father is, and what we can achieve with him in eternity. Then he goes on to say, I'm grateful to know that in spite of my imperfections, at least God is perfect. That at least he is, for example, able to love his enemies, because too often, due to the natural man and woman in us, you and I are sometimes that enemy. How grateful I am that at least God can bless those who despitefully use him, because without wanting or intending to do so, we all despitefully use him sometimes. I am grateful that God is merciful and a peacemaker, because I need mercy and the world needs peace. Of course, we all say of the Father's virtues, we also say of his only begotten Son, who lived and died unto the same perfection. I love that, because that part about it was a tribute to God and what we can become with his help. I love that this commandment isn't expected to be achieved while we're here on this earth. We can't become perfect. We will only become perfect when the atonement is whole and complete. And the atonement wasn't whole and complete until Jesus himself died on the cross and then was resurrected. So that tells me my perfection won't be complete until I die and I'm resurrected with him in the second coming. That's my belief. And it gives me a lot of peace knowing that I'm not expected to be perfect right now. I am expected to try and to do my best. But sometimes my best is just getting out of bed in the morning. Sometimes my best is giving my kids chicken nuggets and french fries like I did today instead of a 4-course meal with vegetables and fruit and all that stuff. I think we actually did have fruit. But my point is, I can't do it all the time. So without belaboring this point, let's move on to number 2. This is getting to know your strengths and talents. We all have them. I know when you're in a bad place, in a bad state of mind, sometimes it can be really hard to think about what your strengths and the positive things are. So maybe you can ask a friend or a family member to help you start that list. And you can pray and ask Heavenly Father to give you some of that list. If you have a patriarchal blessing, you can read it and map it out, because your patriarchal blessing talks about your strengths and your talents. It also talks about your weaknesses and gives you warnings. Write those down, map it out, diagram what he's telling you in that patriarchal blessing. If you don't have one, you can go get one from your bishop if you're LDS. If you're not, you can go to your pastor, another ecclesiastical leader, and they can give you a blessing as well. It'll be a little bit different, but you can still ask him to tell you, what does God want in your life? But I also don't think that you have to wait for an ecclesiastical leader to find this out. I think you can pray and you can ask, and Heavenly Father will tell you, because you are entitled to personal revelation. God loves you. He wants you to be happy. He wants you to know what to do with your life and what he wants for you. So I guarantee he will tell you. It may not happen immediately. You may have to wait for clues and wait for the inspiration to come. But if you're watching for it and you're paying attention, you'll start to see things happen in your life that will show you. Number 3 is give yourself some grace. But like we just talked about with that talk, giving yourself grace means not beating yourself up for a mistake, not beating yourself up for a failure, recognizing that you're an experiment. So instead of feeling upset or embarrassed about a failed attempt or whatever, you can look at it as an experiment. There's a book called Change Anything. I want to say it's by the Arbinger Institute. I could be wrong. Let me look it up in my Audible here. And I can also link to it in the show notes. Okay, it's by Carrie Patterson, Joseph Grenny, and a couple other people. And it's basically about considering your life as an experiment. If you want to change, like let's say you want to lose weight, then what you do is you come up with a plan, right? And if something fails, like let's say you're supposed to drink 64 ounces of water, right? And I have this really cool water bottle that gives you times. It is now almost 7:00 p.m. and I'm only here, so I kind of need to keep drinking all the way down to there. But anyway, the point is, so I didn't get there, right? So that could be a failure and I could beat myself up for it. Or I could say, what caused this? Well, I've had an insane day. I didn't drink like anything during the summer camp that we're hosting. So the experiment would be, what do I need to do differently tomorrow? The difference would be to set an alarm, right? I could alarm every hour to remind me to drink my cup of water. That could be something, right? It's looking at it like, what didn't work? So now I'm going to figure out what does work. In fact, I was reminded of this concept today during the summer camp. So I'm running a summer camp for my kids and some of their friends. And we're building, it's every day we're going to a new country and learning about the culture and the history of this country. It's really fun. And today was Egypt. And so I gave them all marshmallows and toothpicks, and they were supposed to build a pyramid. I told them how to do it. Well, several of the kids are very independent and very creative and did not want to follow the instructions. So, being the good homeschool mom that I am at heart, decided, hey, I need to let them learn to fail. I need to let them learn the consequences of things, right? I am not very good at that. I'm usually a mother hen and who steps in and rescues my kids way too soon. But instead, I decided I need to let them do this their own way. So you know what happened? The ones who decided not to listen to the instructions, most of them had towers that were falling over. And so we just said, don't worry, don't get upset. But now you know what not to do. Why don't you try it a different way? And so they tried it a different way. That didn't work either. So what's interesting is that most scientists and inventors come up with all the different ways of not to do something before they settle on what is the right way to do something, right? And sure enough, with those kids, that's exactly what what happened? They figured it out and they ended up creating these awesome things. And the ones who didn't do pyramids, where stuff was falling over, they ended up creating these really cool buildings. You can see kind of in these pictures the different things that they created, and they're awesome. They made them their own. Sure, they didn't do what they were supposed to do, build a pyramid, but they ended up coming up with a really cool creation and learning something out of the process. They learned that they can make beauty out of something wrong, which is kind of a life lesson, right? Like we can make great things come from mistakes. And I feel like that's just the way life is, right? We can learn. My husband always teases me because he thinks I'm a very spontaneous person. So I might come up with an idea and instantly I'll think of how to do it, right? And I'll be like, oh, okay, these are the steps. So I'm just like, let's just get going. I don't need to sit here and think about it forever. I'm just going to get in, because if something's not working, I can pivot and try something else. And if that's not working, I can try something else. I will eventually arrive at my goal. I might not arrive at it in this like perfect path, but I'm eventually going to get there because I'm a problem solver. And that's just what I do. I don't rest and I don't stop until I get to my goal and I figure it out. And he's like, well, you could have shortened your amount of time if you had just stopped to think about it. I'm like, it's fine. It always works out. So while yes, I should probably be a little more like my husband and think things through a little bit better, but I get there, right? So anyway, the idea of experimenting and realizing that it'll all work out in the end, right? The next item, number 5 is, or number 4, number 5, I don't know what number we're on anymore, is don't compare yourself. Comparison is the thief of joy, right? We've all heard that. Comparison is the thief of joy, and it is so true. The more we look at social media and the more we see someone's best day or whatever, how's that quote go? We compare their Instagram's best to our worst, right? Like we can't do that because most of the time it's not real. What you see right now appears that I am sitting in a clean room, right? I'm in my bedroom right now. And as far as you can tell, my room's clean, correct? It's not. Let me turn this around so you can see. Oh my gosh. Do you see all that laundry? Hold on. We're not done yet. There's more laundry. And there's laundry on the bed. There's laundry on the chair. My room, look over there at my dresser. My room is a mess. So you only get this little snapshot of someone's life. You only get to see a little piece of their real reality. So we can't compare. We can't. It may seem like I've got it all together, although you guys know the truth. I don't have it all together, right? But we all have bad days. We all have crazy things going on. So why pretend that we're perfect? Why put on that front? Will you join me in a revolution and starting this authentic life and start showing our real lives on social media? Who's with me? You guys ready to start that? I feel like our generation is starting to be a little more authentic about life, and it's putting people at ease. It's making people feel more comfortable. I can't even tell you how many times I've been thanked for being authentic and real about things, like a million. And I don't say that to boast or anything like that. I say that to prove a point that people want it. They want authenticity. They want the real you. They want to know what's really going on in your head. Okay. So another thing about getting to know yourself is realizing or thinking about, so we've talked about recognizing your weaknesses, recognizing your strengths, recognizing your admitting to trauma and faults and things like that could maybe use fixing, right? Not dwelling on it, but realizing I've got some work to do here and being okay with that, realizing that just because I have work to do doesn't mean I'm perfect. Okay. So we've talked about those 4 things. The next is acknowledging what you believe and what you value. What are your belief systems? Do you have an ideology? Do you believe in God? Do you believe in multiple gods? Do you believe in an afterlife? Do you believe in morality? What is your moral compass? Like, what is morality to you? What are your core belief systems? And what do you value? Do you value family? Do you value money? Do you value health? Like, what sort of things mean a lot to you as a person? And are those things that you value and you believe, are they a priority in your life? How are they showing up as a priority? So let's say you value God. Are you spending time with him? Are you praying? Are you meditating? Are you reading scriptures? Are you trying to be like him, trying to serve him? Because if you value him, you would, right? In theory. If you value family, how is that showing up in your life? Are you being kind to your family? Are you spending time with them? Are you showing them that you love them with words of affirmation? Like, what are the ways that you're showing and doing things for that, right? And are you doing it in such a way that they'll recognize it, right? So that's like an interesting thought process, and that can take you down a rabbit hole. But it is interesting to know like who that is. And then lastly, discover what you like to do and discover your hobbies and your goals and your priorities and things like that. This last one floats into day number 5. So I'm not going to go too far down this one, but trying to learn who you are also includes things like your favorite color and your favorite music and things like that. And if you don't know what those things are, then I have a suggestion. Date yourself. Take yourself on dates. If you don't know what kind of ice cream you like, try it all. If you don't know what kind of music you like, listen to it all. If you don't know what movies you like, watch a bunch. Go try again. This takes us back to that experiment. Like, get to know what you like. You may discover a really great hidden talent that you didn't know you had, right? Like, I love painting, and I used to paint, restore furniture and paint walls and stuff like that. I love doing that. And the last couple of years, I've discovered I really love what's fine art. I love watercolor, and I love painting with my acrylics and doing murals on my kids' walls and things like that. I have learned to love that type of painting too. And I'm not like this amazing professional painter by any means, but I'm not terrible either. Like, it's a hidden talent that I didn't know I had. And I'm sure the more I practice, the better I would get. Right? I have some friends who are incredibly talented at that. They are so good. And they didn't know they were either until recent, right? You won't know until you try. And and again, don't worry about it if you're not good. Like, I fully acknowledge I'm not a very athletic person. Like, I am terrible at team sports, terrible. But I'm pretty good at rock climbing, or I was back in the day. I'm not anymore. But that's okay, right? Again, like, we move on. So day 4, learning to know yourself. Hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully you got something out of it. You got some ideas of how to get to know yourself, and hopefully it made sense that my rambling wasn't just crazy rambling. But I love you guys. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for joining our Facebook group and being a part of the conversation and supporting and loving one another. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Really helps spread our message to people who need to hear it. The way the algorithms work and stuff, like, it's a big deal. So thank you so much for liking the videos too and sharing them. Those 3 things are huge when it comes to growing the channel. Like I've said before, I'm not trying to get famous. This is not what I would want to be famous for, but I am trying to spread the message of love and hope and healing to people who need to hear it. And I hope that if you're one of those people who needed to hear it today, that you will hear me when I say that you are loved. You are a child of God. You are worthy of love, and you are worthy of friendship. You are worthy of joy, and healing is possible. You can achieve it. If you need help or just want to chat, feel free to reach out to me through our Facebook group or through YouTube. You can leave a comment and I can message you back, but know that you are not alone. I am here for you, and our support group is here for you too. And God is here for you. He loves you so much. I hope that you have a wonderful and blessed day, and I'll see you on day 5.